So the title is Stories Shape Our Character. Stories shape our character. What is our character? Well, one definition is the moral and ethical qualities of a person. And we could say, we call these character traits. And so some character traits are like, humility, gratitude, respect, compassion, responsibility, positive character traits. So if you develop these qualities, then you have a pretty good character. And also things like courage, generosity, loyalty, honesty, self-discipline, and patience. We can call these virtues. If you have any of these, well, if you have a lot of these qualities, you're a pretty good person. Of course, these are negative character traits: arrogance and complaint, disrespect, cold-hearted, irresponsibility, cowardice, selfishness, disloyalty, dishonesty, laziness, and impatience. Do you have any of those qualities? Maybe we have a mixture of both, yes, but we are striving to be better people. So actually, the divine principle, which is our teaching, what does it teach about character, about growth? Well, we have something called the first blessing, to be fruitful. A tree bears fruit when it's fully mature, and so we also should become fully mature. And we have this little diagram that our mind and body should unite, centered upon God, upon God's love and God's truth. And when we have that, we become the best person we can be, a person that's harmonious and where God dwells in you. And so then we would say, well, actually, I would call this our first responsibility. It's not just a blessing. It's our responsibility to grow. No one's going to make you grow. Of course, you put a seed in the ground. But for us to grow, we have to make effort. And an ideal person, I would say, is a person with mature character. Do you think your character is fully mature? Are you half mature? Are you only a little bit mature? Well, it's very hard to say. We're all growing. Do you think you're growing?
Yes.
Are you convinced you're growing? Are you getting better and better every day? Maybe some days up, sometimes down. But gradually in our life, we're trying to be better. And that's what a mature character is. So here are some words from our father, our Reverend Sun Myung Moon. He says this: human beings were originally created to live with God's true love within their minds and bodies, and to resonate with his love. So when we have God there, we're talking about God's truth and God's love. That's what we need, both. Okay? And we can say that the mind was to resonate with God, centered on true love, and the body was to resonate with the mind. And he also says, both the mind and God rejoice when they experience their internal nature and external form through the stimulation which their object partners give them. Which means your internal nature is your mind. Your external form is your body. So when our mind is inspired with truth and filled with love, our mind is very joyful. And also God is very happy that he sees us reflecting that goodness. And also when our mind and body are united, our mind feels very joyful, but our body is also feeling great when they're united. So many times Father talks about mind-body unity as the way to become a true person. And if you have disunity, then you're not being who you're meant to be. Or when the body dominates the mind. Or when the mind guides the body to do bad things. So I have some more words here to say about this to explain a bit more. Joy arises when we have an object partner in which our internal nature and external form are reflected and developed, God wanted his creations to be object partners embodying goodness that he might take delight in them. So when we reflect God's internal nature, God's mind, and we reflect God's external form through our bodies, and we are people of goodness, God is very pleased. He takes delight in us. In the same way, a parent looking at children, and when the children are really good and happy and, being the way they're meant to be, parents are very pleased. But what about relationships with people? Another quote. Each partner rejoices as they experience their internal nature and external form through the stimulation which their object partners give them. So when you are shaking hands or greeting people, it's like your internal nature, your mind, and your external form is reflected back from the other person. So you're picking up their feelings and their thoughts and their actions because you're uniting. So you're actually stimulating a very good energy. And what about nature when you're in creation on a beautiful spring day? Here are more words. Human beings receive stimulation from the world of nature, sensing their own internal nature and external form displayed throughout the creation. They feel immense joy. So when you look at a beautiful flower in spring, that flower has an internal nature. It doesn't have a mind like ours, but it has an internal sense. It has an external form, the flower itself. So when we look at a flower, our own internal nature, our mind is stimulated by the internal nature of that flower and by the external form. And we want to do something with our body, like smell the flower, pick the flower, talk to the flower. So this thing, whether it's our relationship to God within ourselves, whether it's our relationship with each other as human beings or with nature, it's like this internal part of us, our mind, and the external part, our body, is stimulated. So any kind of relationship we have with anything, you're picking up energy. So the mind has three parts. We have an intellect, which searches for truth. We have an emotion, which seeks beauty. And we have a will that seeks to do goodness. Another way to look at this is we could say that we have thoughts, we have feelings, and we have actions. So when you shake hands with somebody, the actions of shaking hands is similar. And the thought is, I want to say hello to that person. And the feeling is, I feel happy meeting you. So this is this internal and external part of us. How does this relate to maturing our character? Well, here's a little saying, which some of you may be familiar with. It says this: sow a thought and reap an act. Well, whatever thought you have leads to you doing something. But I'd probably put in here feeling as well. Whatever thoughts or feelings you have lead you to do something. Sow an act and you reap a habit, because the same thing you do over and over again becomes a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. So it's the habits we form, whether good or bad, that develop our character. And finally, sow a character and you reap a destiny. So destiny is your life, where it's going. So it all starts with your thoughts, with your feelings, and with your actions, day in, day out, in your relationship with God or within yourself, in your relationship with people and relationship with nature. All three, we call these the three blessings. I call them the three responsibilities. Another way we can say, well, as you read, you pick up the same thoughts, feelings and actions as the main characters in the story, because you identify with those characters. Maybe you live through them, because when you read a story, you kind of you imagine yourself in there. Yes, you suspend your disbelief. It's a story, but in that story you become part of it. You become like that character. Or if there's an evil character, you feel, I don't like him, or her, you stay away. So you pick up by it, you get absorbed by a story, and you're experiencing what they're experiencing, because again, in the story, the character's internal nature, their mind, the way they think, the way they feel, and their actions resonate with you and your thoughts and your feelings and your actions. Oh, I want to do the same, or I feel the same. That's a good idea. I don't want to do that. So that's why stories develop our character. And I'm going to tell you a story. Have any of you here have a favourite story from childhood that had a big impact upon you? Anyone like to tell me? Or at least, if you did, can you put your hand up?
Narnia was nice.
Narnia! Oh! Narnia. That's actually the story I'm going to tell you today.
This is not set up.
Because one of my favourite stories from childhood is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And this is C.S. Lewis. I think it was written in 1950? Oh, no, 1960. 1960. So I'd like to tell you the story. So sit back, relax. So, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's about 4 children. They're called Pevensie children. And the book was written after the Second World War, but this is during the Second World War when they were evacuated from London, and they went to stay with an old professor in a big house. And their names are Peter, he was about 13, and Susan, 12, and Edmund was about 9, and his little sister Lucy was 8. Okay? And so this was a big house to explore. But also the grounds were exciting. But one rainy day, they were looking around, exploring, and Lucy, she found this wardrobe. And she just wanted to have a look inside, all these fur coats. And so she went inside, and as she went further in, it's like the ground, was something crunchy on the ground, which was snow. And instead of fur coats, she could feel branches from trees. And then she walked out at the other end, and what did she see? She saw a winter scene. She was in another world. And there was a lamppost. And she was amazed. But then she saw somebody walking towards her. And who was it? It was a fawn. A half man, a half goat. Now, if you're a child, the idea to be in another world, it still fascinates me. There's still many stories of like a portal into another world. How many of you believe it's possible to go to another world through a portal? How many of you would you like to do that? Yes, I'd love to do that. But if you're a child, your imagination, you believe it. Why not? And then here we find this talking fawn. Now, animals don't talk, do they? Would you like that animals talk to you? No? I have a cat. He doesn't talk, but he meows, So, anyway, the name of this fawn is called Mr. Tumnus. And he was surprised to see her, and he asked, well, are you a human child? Well, he didn't understand. Well, my name's Lucy. Yeah, but are you actually a human being? Well, yes. Aha, really, really? Well, that's a surprise. So he invited her to have tea. Now, if you were Lucy, and you imagine you're Lucy, would you go along with him? Not in today's world, no. But he was very friendly, and she was pretty innocent and open, and so actually they had tea together. Yes. So, and having tea, but then he starts to cry. Actually, he played his pipe, his flute, and she started to fall asleep. And actually, when she woke up, he was crying. And he said, I've done something really bad, because he said, I'm the servant of the White Witch. And she's ordered him to capture any human child that appears. And the witch rules Narnia and has placed the land under an enchantment that it makes sure that it's always winter and never spring, never Christmas. Can you imagine if you're a child? It's always winter, never Christmas. How would you feel? Yes. And never spring. But the arrival of human children could break that spell. But of course he lets her go. because he's a good fawn. He's a good character. Yeah. So she comes out, she's all excited, and she wants to tell her brother and sister what happened. But they don't believe her, of course, because when she comes out, no time has passed. So it's like she went to hide, look inside, and they were exploring. And when she came out, no time had passed. And so they thought, what's the matter with her, So they went and looked at the wardrobe, and it was just solid, nothing there. This boy, Edmund, he's actually not the nicest of boys. He thinks she's really crazy, but he's a bit negative and complaining about many things, and he starts to tease her. Yeah, and so you can see she becomes very sad, and he's pretty mean. Yeah. Do you know anybody, when you were little growing up, you had friends, some were mean and some were kind? Yeah, all kinds of characters, yes. So I would identify with Lucy more than him. Or maybe some of you can identify with Edmund. When you were young, I don't know. So, anyway, the next rainy day, they decide to play hide and seek. And so she goes in there again, and actually, guess who sees her? Edmund. So he decides he's going to go in and tease her more. But when he goes in, he finds actually the land of Narnia. And when he gets there, he hears some bells. He can't find her. He calls out, Lucy, where are you? Where are you? I know I was joking and I didn't mean, but I know now we're here. Where are you? But then he hears some bells. And what comes along is a sledge with the White Witch in and this dwarf. And when she asks him, well, what are you? He says, well, what do you mean? Are you some overgrown dwarf or what? No, I don't understand. My name's Edmund. But what are you? Well, I'm a boy. You mean you're a human child? Ah. So she knows that her reign over Narnia could be in jeopardy if human children come, because there's a prophecy about the time when the two sons of Adam and two daughters of Eve will reign in Narnia. So she decides she could kill him because she has a magic wand and turn him into stone. But instead, when she hears actually you have 3 other siblings, is that true? 3 or 4 of you altogether? So she gives him some Turkish delight because he's hungry. But it's enchanted, and this Turkish delight makes you more and more hungry. So if you keep eating and eating and eating, you'll kill yourself. So he wants more. And he said, well, you can have more, but you need to visit me in my home. Because in my home, I have lots of Turkish delight, but also, you can become my heir. You can take over, you can become the king. And your brother and sisters can become princes and princesses. So, but please, bring them to me. That's his promise. And then, after the queen has gone, Lucy finds him. Edmund, you found it. It's Narnia. Oh, I'm so happy. But he doesn't look so happy because he stuffed himself with Turkish delight. And so when they get back inside, actually, does he say, yeah, Narnia exists? No, he says, oh, she's making it all up. How mean can you be? Oh, I feel sorry for her. Don't you feel sorry for her? The older brother and sister, they're a bit worried about Lucy, so they go to the professor and they ask him, can this really be? And the professor says, well, who normally tells the truth, Lucy or Edmund? Lucy. Well, therefore, maybe she is telling the truth. And actually, the professor, in another story, had already been to Narnia. So a few days pass, nothing happens. But then, one day, the housekeeper is showing guests around. It's a big house. And the children have to get out of the way. So what do? They go into the wardrobe. And when they enter the wardrobe, they actually find Narnia, all of them. It's pretty cold, so they put the fur coats on. And where do they go? Well, Lucy, actually, the second time she was there, had more tea with Mr. Tumnus. So he said, let's go and see Mr. Tumnus. But when they get there, it's been destroyed because Edmund told the witch all about the fawn, Mr. Tumnus. So he betrayed Tumnus, yeah. And so Lucy said, well, can't we do something? Actually, there was a note inside there saying that the chief of police, the secret police, has arrested him, yeah. And so they take him to to her castle, where there's lots of stone statues, and so she'll turn him into a statue. But Lucy, having such a good heart, feels, we've got to help him. Of course, they feel, well, this is dangerous because they hear about the witch. They want to go back home, but Lucy persuades them. Yeah. Of course, Edmund, he doesn't want them to go to rescue. He wants to get to the castle so he can become king one day. As they are travelling, actually, they meet a Mr. and Mrs. Beaver, who also talk, and they are good, and they know what happened to Mr. Tumnus, and so he mentions about this lion called Aslan, and when the children hear this word, they feel all this hope. They feel so happy. Yes. And Mr. Beaver says that Aslan is a lion. He's the king of the beasts and the son of the emperor over the sea. And Mr. and Mrs. Beaver help them to understand the witch's evil rule. And they learn that Aslan, the great lion, is the rightful king, and they've heard he's returning to Narnia. They explain the ancient prophecy that the witch's rule will end when 2 sons of Adam and 2 daughters of Eve sit on the throne at Cair Paravel. But Edmund, how do you think he reacts? When he hears the name of Aslan, he's repelled. And he even says to them, how do you know, who can you trust? You trust, I wouldn't trust this Aslan, I wouldn't even trust the beavers. Actually, he disappears. He disappears. Why? Because he wants a more Turkish light. And he believes the witch will make him her heir. So, discovering Edmund is missing, Mr. and Mrs. Beaver and the 3 remaining children search for him without success. But then the Beavers, they say, Edmund has betrayed them. How do they know? Because his face, his eyes, this Turkish delight is like put a spell on him. So the Beavers eventually convince Peter, Susan and Lucy the only way to save Edmund is for the help of Aslan, because only Aslan has the power to deal with the witch. They quickly gather their things and rush to meet Aslan. And the children flee before the witch comes to find them, because, she'll soon, if Edmund reaches the witch, then the witch will know where they are. And what they do, they have to escape quickly, and they find like a hidden cave where they can stay for the night. And in the morning they hear these sleigh bells. Could this be the White Witch? But no, guess who it is? Who do you think it is?
Aslan.
No, Father Christmas. Because in a child's world, you've got to have Christmas. And so the Beavers and the children, so he comes, and actually he gives them gifts. Peter is given a sword and a shield. Susan receives a bow and arrows, as well as a magical horn. The magical horn, if you blow it, help will come. And Lucy receives a healing cordial to use when needed to heal, because a battle is coming. The forces of good and evil are going to come together. But they hear that Aslan is here, and they're going to meet him. What about Edmund? Edmund. He forgot to put his fur coat on, so he's pretty miserable and cold. And he reaches the castle, and what does he find? He finds statues, stone statues of these creatures who were once living and now turned to stone. And upon entering, he makes fun of these animals, and then he meets a wolf. At first he's frightened. He's called Morgrim. He's the chief of the White Witch's secret police. And he takes him to see the queen. the witch. Yes? She thinks she's the queen, but she's not. Yeah? And so she's not happy at all, because where are the other siblings? Why did he not bring them? And she refuses to give him Turkish delight. And then he realizes, oh, I made a big mistake. So what does she do? She sends out 2 wolves to find the beavers and these humans. Yes? But they arrive too late because they'd gone. And then she sets off in her sledge, and she's going to go to the stone table and take Edmund with her. But the weather begins to change because the spell is breaking. And after a while they can't move and they end up walking. And actually, I couldn't find a better picture, but they tie him up. Meanwhile, guess what's happened? The children and the beavers finally meet Aslan, the lion. And when they see him, they say, wow, he's so... They feel this warmth and this power from him and this goodness from him. Yes? And then Aslan asks, where is the 4th child? And they explain how he betrayed them and has gone to the White Witch. And Aslan says, I'll do all I can to save him. And so, Peter is to become the High King. And so he shows, Aslan shows Cair Paravel, the castle where he will be High King. And while he's talking, they hear Susan's horn, because one of the wolves has already reached there, and Susan is in danger. And so he has to... Aslan, rather than saying, I will help, he says, no, you go, because you can win your spurs and you can show what a great fighter you are. So actually, he kills the wolf. He's a brave... He's already become so brave. Can you identify? Wouldn't you like to be like him if you're a boy? Yes, to have this courage. And so what does Aslan do? He gives him a name. He knights him and calls him Sir Peter Wolfsbane. Meanwhile, the White Witch has decided, well, she wants to kill Edmund, ties him up against a tree, because she says, if at least one of the children is dead, then the ancient prophecy cannot come true. But just at that moment, the forces of goodness rescue him. And if you see at the front, there's this tree stump with a funny face and a boulder, because the witch and the dwarf have transformed, because she used her power to hide herself, and then they come back. But actually, you might think she's defeated, but she's not, because she meets up with Aslan and reminds him of a deep magic which says that every traitor belongs to her. Since Edmund betrayed his sibling, she has the right to kill him. And Aslan secretly offers himself in Edmund's place. So now we're talking about the lion is like Jesus. And when I first read this story, it was like a revelation. Wow, it's like Jesus, because actually he was murdered, head shaved, and killed by the queen, by the witch. But, and Susan and Lucy witnessed this from a distance, because they couldn't sleep, and they could see that Aslan looked really sad and heavy. And so they accompanied him towards the stone table, and they saw what happened. And of course they felt terrible. And when all of these evil creatures had gone and they came to Aslan, he was all tied up. The little mice were gnawing at his ropes. And then something dramatic happened. The stone table cracked and Aslan disappeared. And then what happened? He reappeared like Jesus. He was resurrected. And at sunrise, the stone table cracked. He returned to life, and he explained to Lucy and Susan that a deeper magic says that if an innocent victim willingly dies for a traitor, death itself will be defeated. And so he takes the 2 girls to the witch's castle and frees all of these stone animals. so they can then fight against all the forces. Meanwhile, there is a battle going on, and in this battle, the witch is turning more and more people into stones. But then help comes from all these animals who came back from the castle. And then we see that Edmund was really sorry for the mistakes he made. He really apologized. And he was fighting the witch, and he broke her wand. And at that moment, who came in but Guldur Aslan and killed the witch? And Edmund was injured, but Lucy gave him this liquid to heal him. And then they were healed, and so what happened? They could then take the thrones. They could then fulfill the prophecy, and they ruled for about 15 years as good kings and queens. They probably forgot all about this world, but 15 years later, they were hunting for the white stag, some kind of special creature. And so they got off their horses, and where did they come to? They came to the lamppost. And then, when they got to the lamppost, guess what happened? They tumbled out, they were back as children, no time had passed. And that's the story. Did you enjoy the story? Yes. Oh, yes. Do you want to read the book? It's being made into a movie. Of course, maybe not everybody likes reading books, but a movie is a story. So in a story, any story, you identify with the characters. So I said this topic of this sermon is how stories shape our character. So how has this story shaped my character or anyone's character? So let's see some character lessons. First of all, about courage. Courage. Courage means doing what's right, even when it's hard. And Peter, Susan, Lucy, and eventually Edmund must face fear and danger. The lesson, being brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means choosing to do the right thing anyway. Can you identify with that? So, you know, courage is not that you're not afraid, but you do the right thing. And it's difficult. So here's an example. And then, of course, loyalty. So loyalty and friendship matter. The siblings learn to trust and support each other even after conflict. So, loyalty is very important. Loyalty towards God, loyalty towards each other, to your family. So through hard times, you stay together, you stick together. The lesson, stand by your family and friends. Loyalty builds strong relationships. And then forgiveness. People can change and be forgiven. Edmund makes mistakes, but he is forgiven and becomes better. Isn't that God's heart? God is not a God of judgment and condemn us. Yes? Lesson, you are not defined by your worst choices. Forgiveness and growth are always possible. And then, sacrificial love. Sacrifice and love are powerful. Aslan gives his life to save Edmund. Lesson, real love means putting others first. Sacrifice can bring life and hope. We can see our founders, Father and Mother Moon, sacrifice their lives to do God's will. Courageous, doing the things which are difficult. Loyal to God, to serve God, and throughout the whole life. Okay, so those 3, 4. Courage, loyalty, forgiveness, sacrificial love. These are character qualities, positive character qualities which this story brings out. And so when you identify with the characters, this stimulates something within yourself. I want to be like that. These are noble qualities. Also, choices have consequences, because Edmund's decision to trust the White Witch led to trouble, not just for him, but for others. So actions matter. One wrong choice can affect many people. Good is stronger than evil. The White Witch seems powerful, but in the end, goodness wins. Isn't that good? That's what I like with stories, especially as a child, when good overcomes the evil, because that's the way it should be. Yeah? Okay. So evil may look strong, but it doesn't last. Truth and goodness endure. So this world, you could say, has many problems, but you have to have faith. God-believing people have hope, and the goodness will triumph. There is more to the world than what we see. So the wardrobe opens into another world. Children learn that imagination is valuable. There may be deeper meaning and wonder in life. Yeah. So this story shows the possibilities. And there's more to the world than just getting a job and having money. There are deeper things, valuable things. Okay, so here's a little quote. Books and doors are the same thing. You open them and you go through into another world. Isn't that wonderful? So books are great for our imagination. They're great. They raise our spirit. They can give us hope. One of my favorite stories are the kind of stories, true stories of people who overcome difficulties and triumph. And if you want to know a really good book I read recently, it's called Beneath the Scarlet Sky. It's about Second World War, about a man who overcame many things, and he could have died many times, and he only died about 2 years ago. He was almost 100. Survived. So, stories shape character. This is my sermon, so I hope it will encourage you to read or to watch a really good movie that can inspire you, uplift you, and help you to develop stronger character qualities. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for listening.